Transition Planning, presented by Masiya. In this presentation, we're going to look at special education versus ADA, which is the American Disability Act, post-secondary education, employment and work skills, independent living, self-determination, and self-advocacy. We are also going to look at health relationships. What is special education? Special education is a designed instruction that addresses the unique needs of students with disabilities. This program is provided to students with no cost to parents. It also comes with related services a student needs to access general education programs. An eligible child with disabilities will have an IEP, individual education plan, which is revised annually. Also, this IEP is evaluated for continuation of eligibility every 3 years. Who is eligible for a special education program? We have what is known as early intervention. Any child who is between the age of 0 to 2 years is eligible for what is known as early intervention. These are services that are available to children with disabilities or who are showing developmental delays. Children with disabilities and their families receive services in various settings. It can be in school, daycare centers, homes, preschool, and school program or communities. Special education for school-going age. Students who are eligible are between the age of 3 to 21 years. These students are determined to get eligible for special education and related services are entitled for pre-appropriate public education. Services are provided to eligible students according to an individualized education program, which is the IEP. These services are provided in preschools, elementary schools, secondary schools, and other appropriate settings. These can be in group homes or other private settings that offer special education services to students with disabilities. Americans with Disabilities Act. This protects the civil rights of individuals living with disabilities or who are challenged physically or who have mental impairments. The Americans with Disability Act is the most inclusive federal civil rights. It provides law that protect the rights of people with disabilities. It deals with access to employment for people living with disabilities. It also provides state and local government programs and services. It ensures access to places like public accommodations, businesses, transportation, telecommunication for these people with disabilities. Like I said in the previous slide, employment, telecommunications, public accommodation, public services, and non-profit services are very important services for people living with disabilities. Each place, it has to have the signs that provide services for those people living with disabilities, if it's a public place or other private places too. Being physically challenged or mentally challenged can inhibit someone in participating in major life activities. These major life activities are running, walking, or eating, hearing, reading, breathing, learning, and working. What is post-secondary education? This is education taking place following graduation from high school. Any education beyond high school. This is when a student with disabilities or without disabilities is faced with making choices of what to do after graduating high school. Many options are available for these students. It can be going to college, trade school, military, employment, or going to a technical college. For these choices to be considered and taken seriously, there should be a transition plan whereby a student with disabilities identify choices or employment interest during the transition planning. These choices are to be respected and taken seriously. These choices include transition planning for post-secondary education, which can be furthering education and training, employment, independent living, and community participation. All these are included in the transition plan during the IEP meeting. What are the options for employment after graduating high school? Students can choose to volunteer while they are learning and gaining experience. They can also be taught work skills through engaging in community-based learning and experiencing fundamental work skills. Students can also visit places of employment that can be arranged by schools during the transitioning period, and they can work while they are gaining experience. What are work skills that students focus on? Students learn to be punctual, reliable, and to have strong work ethics. They are also taught how to follow directions, showing up early, arriving on time, ready to work, listening and following instructions, willingness to learn, performing quality work, displaying a positive attitude, and completing work in an entirely fashion. All these students with disabilities can have activities that lead them to have such work ethics through participating in different programs. What jobs are available for students with disabilities? There are so many areas where students with disabilities can work. They have choices to make when they graduate high school. They can choose to continue with education, like we have said before, or they can choose to work. They can choose to work in fast food restaurant, learning how to cook. They can clean dishes, mop the floor, and prepare ingredients for food. Independent living. It is the idea and practice which empowers people living with disabilities. It enables them to exercise choice, freedom, self-control in every aspect of their life. To live independently, there are basic needs that are required by people with disabilities, even people without disabilities. They need information, peer support, housing, equipment, personal assistance, transportation, and accessible to environment. All these are the requirements that people need when living independently. Support can be offered to people living with disabilities. These people require mentors or professionals who provide social services that will be minimal, as the student can manage going to work, managing finances, paying bills, and other daily house chores. Daily living skills are the ones that determine whether a person is able to live independently. For example, bathing, dressing, transferring from bed to wheelchair or other places, or meal preparations. If one is capable, then there should be access for this person to make choices on activities that they want to take part in. For example, painting, educational lectures, book clubs. They can also take computer classes. They can take foreign language classes, writing workshops, sewing or cooking classes. What is self-determination and self-advocacy? When a student with disabilities can decide for themselves what they want and what they need, this is self-advocacy. When the student can stand up or speak up for themselves, this is called self-determination. Self-determination and self-advocacy are very critical social skills. This can be persistent and need empowerment. Advocates need someone who is strong, who is able to decide what they want and what they need to do, and resilience. To make it happen, one should know oneself, the environment that the person is living in, and valuing oneself, planning and acting and experiencing outcomes and learn from those to be able to be self-determined and self-advocating. Health and relationships matters. Good relationships help us to live longer and live happier lives. There are universal tips for maintaining health relationships. Students with disabilities are taught to be present. They are taught to listen, to be able to give time and be able to be listened to. They get support to maintain good health. They get support to maintain good relationships with family members, co-workers, college mates, peers, and housemates.